and you're very welcome to a weekly Irish League podcast called Kicking Match. My name is Peter Cinnamon, and we are finally starting to have something to fill out our end of year report card. Larne, they are champions. Tick. Glenavon, they've booked themselves a little European playoff spot. Tick. Everything's finally starting to feel pretty chill. That is, until you remember that the Swifts and the Ports are set to face off in a high-stakes relegation shootout this weekend. Cliftonville, they're now looking for a brand new manager after McLaughlin says goodbye to North Belfast and possibly driving down the Glenshane Pass every other day for work. And it just couldn't wait until the season wrapped up. The transfer rumour mill is already churning, and we are going to have a hook through it all. We are hurtling towards the end of the season. Only 2 games that are still yet to be played, but so much has been decided already. We have brand new champions, we have historic champions, but as we head towards the final stages, we're mixing it up. We're a wee special one. You know what's coming on. You can hear there's something a wee bit different. We've moved down from the Kicking Match HQ, and we're now in the echoey, cavernous surroundings of my living room. Why? Because the bedroom could not handle the size of this podcast. Because joining me is not 1 but 2 guests. They're live in person. They are Gareth Frazer. They are Conor Houston. But together they're known as the Irish League podcasting duo, the Waffle. Hello, and boys, you're very welcome.
I've goosebumps after that. That was incredible.
Well, you guys are well into this game before I am. I'm just about to finish my very first season. I know lineups has changed like any great band along the way, but I had a wee hope today on your original OG podcast all the way back in June 2019. This is where I ask the very obvious question. Does it feel weird looking back?
I think it's like a really nice timestamp of our lives, which is deep. But like in June 2019, were you married?
I was, yeah.
Well, that shows what I know. But like, I wasn't married. I wasn't even engaged. I lived at home. You were babyless.
Yep.
And so now it's like a really nice timestamp. And that's what it is for us. I think it's like a really cool diary in the midst of the Irish League for us both to go back and listen and be like, oh my goodness, yeah, we're so weird.
And you remember Institute wasn't a league. You know, that's all the times in our lives that we want to look back on. We'll try and get the voices get going so people kind of know who we're talking to. We're going to start with Conor. Tell us a bit about yourself. Allegiances for those who might not be Waffle aficionados.
Well, greetings if you're not a Waffle aficionado. My name's Conor. I love Fulham and I love the Irish League. So we'll go with that.
Sweet.
But yeah, no, I love it. I've been in London the last 6 or 7 months, and I've been truly missing the Irish League. And I've been a lot of football this year, but it's just not the same.
And there's a little bit of juicy news that we're getting into, the current bit. Obviously, for those that are going on and listening back to some Waffle stuff, you guys took a bit of a break this year. You even joked on your most recent comeback episode about how your announcement of we're going to take a chill for a while felt like have they just said goodbye, you know?
You sent us a lovely message.
Well,
as well, which was so cute, wasn't it?
It was very
and
nice.
I was like, this is so kind. I think you were the one that made us realise we've gone too far. It sounded like something was really wrong.
Like something crazy's happened.
Well, we'll come round to your big wonderful times that are in London, and we'll jump in to Gareth. Pin your colours to the mast for these listeners here.
I'm Gareth, and obviously a big Irish League fan. Love doing a bit of podcasting from time to time. And yeah, I'm a Crusaders fan, so I don't shy away from it because, you know, I think when I first started the podcast, Conor will tell you, like, I was really bad with, probably quite biased, but I think I've got a lot better now, so I don't hold on to it too much.
Well, if we were to look back in those hazy days of 2019, and we now look at ourselves in the mirror, April 2023, could you imagine the little team that could? Larne would be sitting not only top of the pile, but they've got it in the bag. They are champions, they are history makers, they are the first team outside of Belfast to take home the Gibson Cup in over 20 years. This team has been on a real journey over the past few years. Seeing them celebrate that victory against Crusaders and knowing that they've secured the trophy feels like real life Football Manager to me. And obviously the person playing it is Kenny Bruce with his investment. Look, we'll talk about how the investment and how the team building has really led them to this huge moment for them. But I must say, firstly, congratulations. And I've also got to reflect on how we always look back at the Irish League and think it's all about tradition and these teams have been there for a while. Yes, there's been the investment, but here comes Larne. They've shaken the apple cart, and we could be looking at a very different Irish League for the next 10 years. Not just doesn't include Larne, it could be anybody. Because back in 2019, yes, the project was rocking and rolling, but it's done incredibly well to be sitting here champions with 2 games to go.
Yeah, no, it's actually awesome. And do you know what, Peter? Kenny Bruce came in and was like, this is what I'm going to do. This is my time frame. And they've done it, haven't they? With maybe a year, maybe 1 more year they took. But like, they're just like, I mean, I remember one of our friends and I used to go to Larne games kind of for a bit of banter, like on a Saturday if there was literally nothing else to do. And they were just getting spanked week in, week out by boys. Like just, and that pitch was, you know, it was like going uphill. And look at it now. Like we were at Seaview on Friday night, and it's, do you know, it's just the joy that it's brought to Larne. But also I think the football in the league's kind of changed a wee bit on the back of Larne, and the professionalism on the back of Larne. And yeah, they've done very well, super well.
I think for the neutral, it was maybe a bit of a surprise because the drama wasn't there. You know, over the past several seasons of the Irish League, we are expecting drama. It sometimes goes down to the wire. It hasn't happened this year, and I think Larne deserves so much credit for that. They got the job done. They got it done in a very good manner. And, you know, I was there on Friday night watching them, and they played Crusaders off the park. They were absolutely fantastic to watch as a football team. So
the investment has clearly been the thing that everybody's been talking about, but we also see other teams. The big team in East Belfast, they've had investment. They haven't been able to hook the big one. And you touched on something really interesting there, Conor, about the way Larne have done it and how it feels like they have been the arbiters of change in this league. They push for the full time, and yes, Larne, Linfield were sniffing around it, but it felt like because they went for it, everybody else had to do for it as well. And I think the way they've particularly built their team has been different. And if you wrote a big list of why they are champions, the top one for me is recruitment. They've absolutely nailed recruitment. They had some tough decisions to make. We reflect on last summer on how they're saying goodbye to Ronan Hill, they're saying goodbye to David McDade, how are they going to build this team up. And you have to admit, man for man, they've knocked it out of the park. That investment in Lee Bonus looks like, you know, the one. They beat the house with that deal.
Yeah.
They bring in Miller, they bring in so many other players like that who have been huge players for them. They have let go of Ben Doherty.
Yeah.
And who do they bring back? Joe Thompson, they bring in Micheál Glynn. And when we look at teams like Glentoran and go, why aren't they champions? There's been a lot of factors, but one of them has been they haven't nailed recruitment the way Larne has.
Yeah, no, that's true. And even think, I'd read this week that Larne lost their 4 top scorers from last season. And, you know, is there a team anywhere else in the world that loses their 4 top scorers and the next year goes and wins the league so well? Leroy Miller's the guy. Like, I think that anytime I've seen Larne this season, like he was the signing. And I think Larne boldly, when they got all that money, they maybe did the football manager thing like you're saying, and they went overseas. They brought in like a load of people no one had really heard of. It was like, what's going on here? Their background's quite cool, but I think now going between Irish League, like players who are solid and, you know, experimenting with players maybe mostly from Scotland, it looks like it just is working. Like, and I think the dynasty's being built. I think the Larne dynasty is here.
Yeah, and I think you can even throw it back to Lee Bonus, and all the talk was, oh, look at the money they've spent on him, but what a wise investment. I mean, an absolutely fantastic player, and he's certainly helped them get to that league title. And, you know, obviously the rumours have already started that he's probably on his way out this summer, but it's no surprise. You know, he could be on for better things, but, you know, it just, when you look at the recruitment, they've, as you say, Peter, they've nailed it. They've nailed it in the head. It's
a story which myself and others and you guys will be talking about for weeks and months, and I'm sure we'll get down to the nitty-gritty on how the league was won. Let's go to the Friday night and talk about the team who was also in that game. Crusaders go down to 10 men fairly early, and we have to talk about this moment, the Billy Joe Burns sending off. Who wants to tell me that it was deserved? Because I don't know if we're gonna find many people. If I was a Crusaders fan, I would be furious, because that red card really put the idea of this game as a contest completely to bed.
It was one of those that at the time I seen it, I thought, I've clearly missed something here, because how on earth is that a red card? I've went home and I've watched it back 2 or 3 times, and I've thought, that is such a poor decision. I actually thought at the time, I thought Billy Joe was actually closer to, can't even remember who threw it at, or threw it towards, I should say. When you see it back, it actually looks worse, because he's actually quite a distance away, and is it even a yellow card? Do you know what I mean? It's quite an interesting decision, and would you be expecting it to be overturned?
My question is, what did the referee see? Because when the ball's thrown and it hits, it doesn't look like his eyes are particularly transfixed on what's going down. Obviously, you have a full team, and there'll be a report that will tell you exactly what went down. But with that being said, Crusaders, another season not really being in the mix for a title. They are in the Irish Cup, and potentially Ballymena are going to come up. Ballymena are really going to look for revenge in that game. Recently, Stephen Baxter celebrated 900 games as manager. How much is on the line, do you feel, in that game in the Irish Cup? Because a lot of people feel that might be a giveaway for the Crews, and I don't think that's the case at all.
I think it's huge, and I think they don't want a repeat of last year. It went right to the wire, and Ballymena on the day were by far the better team, but we all know here that that's not how football works. So they'll be looking probably to try and get that game wrapped up early. But as you say, Ballymena, they've been a completely different team when it comes to the cup this year compared to the league. But I think as well for the Crews this season, one of the things has been the away form's just been difficult. I was looking at the away points taken and the home points taken so far this season. So as it stands, the Crews actually have the most points at home and the least points away of the top 6. So it's quite an interesting just to see the inconsistencies there.
It's funny you mention that, because I have that table right in front of me, and Crusaders are top of the league when you consider the home table. From 19 games, they have 47 points. Larne would be second there, only playing 17 games with 40. So regardless if they win those 2 games, Crusaders would still be top of that table. But if we're to look at Crusaders away form, they're all the way down 7th, below even Glenavon away from home. Only the 4 wins, 7 draws and 6 losses. The draws are absolutely key there. I know some of them will be against some of the top teams, and I've talked for endless hours in this podcast about how many draws there seems to be between top 6 teams. But when we think about this summer, and if there's going to be European money for Crusaders to try and attack and go for this again, we all know what's going to be sitting on the board. It's, we need to improve our away form, and we need to start winning against these bottom 6 sides. That must be so frustrating when you're getting these big results against the Linfields and then going and messing it up against Carrick or something like that. And it wasn't just those one-offs. It seemed to happen time and time again.
Yeah. I think that there'll be a lot of change in that Crews team, I imagine. We've spoken about this, that the Crews team is a lot older than other teams, and I don't know where a lot of they're unbelievable players throughout that team, and Irish League legends, and they'll go down as Irish League legends, so many of them. But I would love to see, if we could fast forward 4 years from now, how many of those Crews players are actually still in that Crews team. But they're doing the business, like you're both saying, like in the Irish Cup, and in the league at home. Decent.
It's funny you say that, and I know over the next few weeks I'm going to get into how these teams will try and build their teams for next season, particularly in the shadow of Larne and how they do things. But you actually look at that top 6. You talked about a dynasty there for Larne. I think if you're taking bets on who's going to be champions next season, I think Larne are significant favourites, because Linfield are a team completely in flux. You'd almost argue actually this season was what we saw in the second half of last season. It just continued on, and they didn't address the issues there, and that's a team that's going to have a lot of changeover. Glentoran, it's the same thing. You go, well, they've brought in a lot of players, but how are they going to work things out? And is it just going to be another case of throw a load of players away and try and bring other players in to try and fix this, or are they going to take a breath and settle themselves? I feel like they're right now poised to be the closest challengers, because Crusaders, as you said, we don't know if they'll be able to hold on. How many more seasons at a top level will we see Heatley? Will we see BJ Burns? Players like that. Even Philip Lowry, who's had an incredible season, 20 goals. You're going to have to guarantee him to get 20 goals again if you're looking to push on. So they will have a lot of questions. And look, they didn't bring a lot of players last season during the summer, so it might almost be a two summers in once this summer when they're going to try and deal with that. And then you get to Cliftonville. News broke on Monday night. Paddy McLaughlin has parted ways with the club. He had been there for 4 years. By the time this podcast is out, there may be confirmation on where his destination may be. A lot of talk in the papers and online that he may be eyeing up the assistant manager's job at Derry City, his hometown club, a club that he followed, and that is such a blow for Cliftonville, because it feels like this is the end of this 2-year journey that they've been on, the journey that where they came so close last year, the end of this season, as it's all gone wrong, the wheels have really fallen off, and now they're sitting in 4th place. Second ain't going to happen, and they've still got to fight for Europe, and they're going to be doing it without Paddy McLaughlin. Seems like the worst time he could possibly go. Reflecting on Paddy McLaughlin's time, he wasn't able to bring the big one to Solitude, but I think looking back on him, we'll think of him as a really progressive manager, a manager who brought a lot of attacking ideas and really was able to steady the ship after a few bumpy years there in North Belfast and in Cliftonville.
Yeah, I think credit for Paddy. I think if you look at that Cliftonville team right now, most of those players walk into any of the teams in the league. They are just a fantastic bunch. And for a part-time club to have players of that magnitude playing for them, it's quite impressive. And Paddy deserves all the credit for that, because he brought those players together and assembled that team. And I suppose the disappointment will be maybe last year not just getting to the trophy or the Gibson Cup. Sorry, I think everyone sort of thought this season, well, can they go one better? But it kind of towards the end, as you've said, it's kind of petered away a bit. But yeah, it's unfortunate. But I think with 2 games to go, I'm a bit surprised that he's gone now and not waited. But maybe that's just the way it works sometimes.
He's brought in, though, lads like Johnny Addis, who wasn't really getting much game time for Ballymena, but last season was like, what was he, player of the year? Like, he was certainly in the team of the year. Like, he was awesome. Chris Lowe as well was good for Dungannon, and he's made him into a player. Colin Coates as well.
Yeah.
Like, there's loads of lads that he's brought to the club and that maybe other teams, they've fallen out of favour. And certainly I think of last year, like, Cliftonville conceded very, very few goals. I think that's maybe been one of the issues this year. But we were talking about Paddy on the way here, and we were like, if someone offers you, kind of your dream job, closer to home, would you not take it? Like, I mean, if it was my job, I'd be like, yeah, let's go. Like, so
I think also there's a relationship there where when this is where you're going to move on to, and perhaps you felt as though you've taken this club as far as you can go, and that you've got a lot of upheaval or change this summer to try and rectify the way this season has went. Perhaps when your heart's already gone, it's better just to move on and go, right, we've had a poor run of form, the players kind of know what's going to go down, let's change it up, let's put somebody in there that at least could be a part of the future of this club, let's look forward, not back. And like, it's all about those players on the pitch at the end of the day. There's going to be some continuity between now and the end of the season, and perhaps when you look back at this season, you'll go, well, look, we had a really big starlet in Sean Moore who could be helpful if he's a chip that moves on, that could reinvest into the club. And perhaps you just have players who really bled out of their skins the season before, and it's not less of a decline, it's just more of a evening out. And perhaps they'll push on and rectify that next season. But part-time, they've done brilliantly. But this league's cutthroat. And Europe is going to be vital. Like any team we're talking about in the top 6, Europe can really change things up, because if you don't get Europe, you don't get that investment, and all of a sudden the people around you're hoping that you don't have the same slippage. It's like they can make mistakes and you can't. And for Paddy, I'm sure anybody involved in the club, everybody involved in the league, all the best and good luck with that. It's obviously a personal and a career choice there. And for Cliftonville, they lose against Glentoran. They're going to be, unless Glentoran are somebody able to sneak their way into second, which there'd have to be a big swing for that to happen, they'll likely have to face them again. So yes, they've been on this poor run, but they can't let this potentially ruin next season for them. We've talked a bit about Glentoran and about how look, they started this season so well. They looked like champions elect after 10 games. You thought, you know what, they've built up so much head of steam and they're looking so good and the players are so unbelievable. They can lose a few games, draw a few games here, and they're probably going to be all right. But they were caught, and they were the ones that drove themselves off the road. And as much as they are building up a bit of steam now towards the end of the season, they will go in, I think, with confidence into this split, into this, well, European playoff, because they're the team in form. And when you're in form and you need these big games, you need big-time players, and the hottest player on that pitch is Bobby Burns. He can score from anywhere. They're all quite similar, but what a rocket of a shot he has.
Yeah, he was awesome. The Glens actually were awesome. We were there on Saturday, and it could, honestly, in the first half, could have been like 5 or 6, and they looked really good. I haven't actually seen the Glens in a while, and I think if you hadn't watched much Irish League and then you watch them, you'd be like, are these the guys like challenging? Because they look awesome. And you're right, like the momentum is there completely for them. They were a wee bit maybe unfortunate with some results recently, but they have just been, their season's been so weird. Like they were on fire, and then I tweeted the Glens are going to win the league, and then that coincided with a run of defeats and it all falling apart, unrelated. But yeah, they're looking really, really good. And Junior, you were saying that guy Junior looks really good.
yeah, it was. No, I think the Glens. I think what happened last season with the Irish Cup, and it became an off-field distraction. They went into the split and their form just dipped completely. This season we kind of seen a similar thing happen, where off the field incidents, or I don't know what you would say, but just things that you would see in the papers, the talk around the club.
It was that McMenamin tackle up in Coleraine. That felt like the moment it all started to slip. All of a sudden they lose to Cliftonville. It's the first loss of that season, and they wobbled. They were out. They were without such a main player for them. They couldn't find themselves. The big games are coming thick and fast. And I think they've recovered. And look, if they get Europe, they'll be like, whoa, we got away with that one. Mm-hmm. So all eyes on them. And you're right, they've refreshed things with Junior. He's a real strong, power-running presence for them. But you just never know with them and how it's going to go. But before we leave this, we'll talk about Cliftonville. When you go through all the managers in the league and beyond, and you think, who is going to fill this post? There's no real obvious candidates. You can kind of pick managers from other teams that are lower in the league. A lot of talk seems to be that it might be a promotion from within. I think, and what do I know, but I think talk of the Grant McCanns or whatever. I think he is a manager of a higher level. If he comes into part-time football, happy days. I still think Cliftonville is one of the premier jobs, and they do have a great squad. How much will stay there with McLaughlin even, we don't know. And I think they've also got a real balance issue to address. And they're not going to be a team that has lots of money to throw about. But they've recruited well in the past. Who that's going to be, I don't think there's anybody that's really clear. Some outside the box people might be someone like Andrew Waterworth, but then what's his badge situation? You almost look at people like that's behind the scenes at Larne, think, would Gary Hivern want to move across? Or is he like, I'm sweet, I'm a part of this project right here, right now? So I'm fascinated. I think whoever gets named, I'll be like, wow, I didn't see that coming. You know, there's a lot of momentum, I think, within fans behind giving somebody like Mark Smith a go. And look, if you're reflecting on other clubs, it's hard to look back and remember the early days of Owen Kearney or Stephen Baxter or even Gary Hamilton. These were not people who had this incredible pedigree that had won the league 6 times with a Dundela. You know, they were coming in often with very little experience. And yeah, it didn't start brilliant for all of them, but they were given a go and they were able to build themselves up. And there's some of the most respected managers in the league. And perhaps this could be the start of something brilliant, but it might take a bit of patience, and it might just be a fallow year for Cliftonville. That is going to be a fascinating who pops up there.
It's true. I think the problem is, if it is like the likes of Mark Smith or somebody, they come in and there's the automatic pressure of Europe.
100%.
Do you know what I mean? You have the hottest take though. This is an exclusive. Who this man thinks?
It's just a thought, but is David Jeffrey thinking his time at Ballymena might be coming to an end? He's already spoke of it this season. Would that be something that you could see happening? It's very bold, but I don't know.
I think this year nothing can really surprise any of us.
Mick? Say Mick. Mick will get it.
He's got his wonderful job out there doing his own thing. For me, I saw that news coming for Paddy, but right now I'm not going to see who's eventually announced, and I think it's a real interesting test now for the Cliftonville board. Do they go for what might be considered a name? Is there maybe talk of somebody within the League of Ireland moving up? They're gonna have to get this right, because I think with the talent pool that they have there, they've got maybe another year, 2 years. Maybe someone want to move on. You kind of have to get this right or believe in a project, because like we said, you don't have the ability to just throw all these players out and bring new ones in again. Every club right now in the Irish League is struggling with recruitment. And Cliftonville could find themselves there very, very easily. It's in tender hooks, really, their status at the top of the league, and they're a club to definitely keep an eye on. To reflect just on the final game in that top half of the split, Linfield sneaked the win and pretty much guaranteed themselves second place. There is 5 points between them and Glentoran. Obviously, they would need to only get 1 point from the last 2 games. Glentoran to win both those games and then be able to swing the goal difference, which could be very likely, actually would be guaranteed to happen if they were to win both those games. So look, they have business to do. A big goal from Niall Quinn. He's had a difficult season in his testimonial year, and lots of talk that he might not be a Linfield player next season. Look, every Linfield fan has their own hypothesis of what went wrong. Clearly, Cal Lafferty was not the answer for them. But hey, those are the breaks. You roll the dice. Talking about Linfield and the news that the rumour mill's already chugging. Potentially, Matthew Fitzpatrick is being eyed up. He's being the jewel of the eye of many clubs in that top 6. Could Linfield be the team that could entice him into full-time football and give it a go? I think I talked last week with the boys from around the grounds and Ross, who is a Linfield fan, and I talked about how I think philosophy is going to be the key thing at Linfield, regardless if David Healy is manager there next season or not. How they approach building their team is going to be key, because they have clearly spent money before, but never in the same way where they're bidding against other teams in the likes of a bidding war for a Shane McCartan or a Lee Bonus. When you look at someone like Fitzpatrick, who is one of the best strikers in the league right now, scoring goals, he is not... It's easy to go and drop a whole whack of money when you're sitting there looking at a 22-year-old player like you did with Lee Bonus. When you're looking at someone like that going, right, do we have to get the checkbook out and spend potentially 6 figures? And you could write a list saying, here's why you shouldn't risk that. But then you should also maybe write a list of, this is what we have to do. If you were to sit there and be a team builder for Linfield, what do you think the answer is? Do you think they need to return to the roots of their David Jeffrey era and start picking? And look, the market for these players is a lot more expensive than it was back in 2012. Let's be fair, 2007 in those years. But do you think it's time to start picking the best of the league and start looking within the league rather than externally moving forward if they want to be lifting the Gibson Cup next year and the year beyond?
I think it's interesting you said about philosophy. I agree with that, and I think the mindset needs to change at Linfield. This isn't the Irish League of 10, 15 years ago where you would see Linfield run away with it year after year. We're looking at a league now that is increasingly, we see a gap between full-time football, part-time football. It's increasingly opening up. But also in regards to Linfield, I just think that the mindset will have to shift of, well, look at Larne, look what they've achieved this season, and they've just gone about their business in a really positive way. And yes, there's money involved, but I think if Linfield want to get back there, then I agree with you. I think they're going to have to get the checkbook out and get the ball rolling. And could we get to a point where there's 6 figures being spent constantly? Possibly, but do they want to retain the Gibson Cup again? Then they're probably going to have to do it, because the other clubs are going to be doing the same thing.
I would go for Matthew Fitzpatrick. If I was in the top 6, just get Matthew Fitzpatrick. Everything else
100%.
will come to you. He is the answer right now. He's class.
What's fascinating about when you look at money being spent in the Irish League, Europe is the thing that really skews it, because I was looking through stats in regards to the National League, Notts County, top of the league, battling with Wrexham, and their main player is a striker called Macaulay Longstaff, aka the non-league Haaland. He was bought for 50 grand. You know, and this is a player who really is a League Two kind of player moving up. So there is a bit of a, you know, when teams go, why are we spending this money? There is definitely an Irish League tax moving forward, and how they build, we'll have to sit and look back. A quick moment for the team that was defeated by Linfield. This Coleraine season, this Coleraine past 6 months, it's just been a bit bleak. When they had this optimism that, oh, we have Matthew Shevlin, oh, we're beating top teams now, we're dealing with that issue that we had against the top 6, they've somewhat returned to form. They were a team who did do a lot of business in the summer, and maybe going back to the drawing board is being a bit over the top, but they clearly need to do something to change it up to get themselves different results.
Yeah, they've almost looked a little bit lost in the top 6 this season, especially in the latter half. Anytime I've seen them, I think even back to the League Cup final, it was pretty routine for Linfield on the day, which obviously is hugely disappointing to Coleraine. They've done well to get there, but yeah, I don't know what. As you said, they've invested in the summer. They've made some very good signings. What is the issue exactly? Maybe they just need a summer break. Who knows?
I think that, I suppose this is maybe slightly off topic, but like the European playoffs are going to be incredible, because now with obviously Linfield, and they've done well to solidify second, but like those other 4 teams, and potentially depending on obviously how the Irish Cup goes, you know, they need Europe, even to the point that maybe some of them will like stay in that top 6. Maybe that's a bit too far, but you know, they need Europe to attract players, maybe to keep some players. So I think that we are hurdling, and this is what's class, I think, about the Irish League, is that like it's not even going to be over when we think it's all over, and it's going to lead, I'd imagine, to maybe the most exciting European playoffs, for sure.
It's just so much is on the line.
Yeah.
That's the key thing about it. Fellas, if you want drama, it's not at the top of the league right now. It's the boys at the bottom that's getting the hearts racing. And the blood thumping right now. Look, let's go through the games that happened that might not have a massive impact. Well done, Glenavon. They beat Newry in a game that I was at, and there was a goal and there was a winner. Congratulations there. Newry are looking really good. That win against Portadown has set it up so well for them that they look into one of these big games this weekend, and they'll be clearly waving one colour because they could be safe by this weekend. So Glenavon, they've got 7. That's great for them. Carrick, they'll be disappointed. They aren't getting 7th. But they're sitting there with 40 points. The highest total they've had, I think, ever maybe in the top league or in absolute ages. Congratulations to Stuart King. So, at the bottom, this weekend, we'll talk about them together. Dungannon went away to Ballymena, a team that has like done nothing in 12 games. Pretty much this year, they have been really, really poor unless they're playing at Seaview. That's pretty much their season. In a nutshell, you then had Portadown hosting Carrick, where if results went a certain way, they're down, they're out. The feel-good Nell Curry story is over this year, and they go back to their own drawing board. Championship side drawing board, which isn't just as fun. And look, they may still go there, but a huge swing where all of a sudden now Dungannon lose 2-0, Portadown win 3-1, 2 points between Portadown and Dungannon with 2 games to go, and they're going to be playing each other this weekend. Absolutely massive. What a weird season this must be to be a Portadown fan, where they were like the opposite of Glentoran. They looked completely out of it, and they're not there yet. But is it fair to say the momentum may be there with them? But they have to do something they haven't really done this season, and do something away from home, because they're bottom of that table. That's still currently up on my computer. Only the 4 points. They have 1 draw and 1 win. Probably should be 2 wins there, but we'll not get into that semantics. I did not make that decision. I'm sure for most people, like it has been for us, watching this, especially the past 2 months, this journey of Niall Curry getting this team who could barely score a goal, kicking and fighting, has been fascinating to watch from afar.
Yeah, it has, and I think the big influence has been Niall himself and who he's been able to bring in. You look at those players; they're players that are probably going to save you, and it's weird. Like I seen Portadown earlier on the season, and I thought they would look lost in the championship. Never mind the Premiership.
See, that's a key distinction. Where on the timeline are we? Because I joked about maybe stats earlier on, and I wanted to see what difference in numbers Niall Curry has made to this team. And look, it all may end in tears, but before Niall Curry took charge of his first game, which was a 4-0 loss to Coleraine, they hadn't won a game in 11. They had 1 draw. They conceded 26. That's 2.5 goals a game. How many goals had they scored? 4. 4 in 11. And since then, he's had 25 games in charge. They're now, from 1 point, they've taken it to 22. It's been difficult, but that's 7 more wins if you count the Newry one on the pitch. 3 extra draws. They still lose 16. And there's not 4, but there's 30 goals scored on the pitch. That's why they are where they are. Because if you flip it back to Dungannon, why are they down here at the bottom of the league and for another season? If you combine how many they conceded last season and how many they've conceded already this season, it is 167. It's almost 170 goals across 2 seasons. If you need to figure out why Dungannon are in this mire that they are, it's at the back.
You're the stat man.
I am today.
That was so impressive.
I am today. How do we hope? Because
like Carol Vorderman.
I've got more, because you talk about goals there. The players that they brought in, they say they couldn't bring in a striker. They couldn't get any strikers in the summer. They bring in Alan O'Sullivan. They bring in Cahir Frail, a real hero for them against Carrick there on Saturday. They've been without Paul McElroy, who I believe is their top goal scorer for the past 3 games. How important could he have been in those games? Then between them, since late January, have scored 11. They've scored over a third of the entire season's goals. So Dungannon, they're the lowest scorers in the league with 23. But we go into this game, Portadown, away from home. Dungannon can draw this game. It probably suits them a bit better. We then have this weird game where all Dungannon need to do is win and they're safe. But do you feel as though the current momentum of Portadown would mean they're favourites against a Dungannon side who are a lot stronger at home, and they're against a team who have barely anything away from home? Bar that mad 4-3 that they got against Newry, Portadown have got a point and that's it.
It's just hard to really think about, because there is so much, there's so much happening, and it's exciting because when you come to the end of the year and it gets a bit boring. Larne have obviously done very well, but it's kind of boring as well because they've done so well that, to me, this weekend Dungannon had that dream game. Ballymena haven't won since January. They go there and it went awfully for them, and it is literally, what do you say, the wheels have fallen off the apple cart. I've maybe joined 2 metaphors in one, but I do think you're right. The momentum, I feel like there's weird neutral fans have now just picked up with Portadown.
Oh, absolutely. It feels like everyone's just enjoying the memes from Niall Curry. Yeah. I know that people like the Flynet boys are mad fans. The Around the Grounds boys are mad fans. Just watching Portadown just seems to be a mad roller coaster, which has more highs than lows. The main reason they're currently sitting within arm's reach is this mad run of games. How many times I feel like I've said in this podcast that this is really a must win for Portadown or they're out of it, and they haven't won all of them. But if we look back in recent months, 3-1 away, there's a trend here, 3-1 away at home against Glenavon. Then they have the Swifts at home, 3-1 again, mad game on a Friday night. They beat Ballymena at home. They then somehow get a 2-goal swing to beat Newry away from home when the whole season would have been over by then. Now looking back, if they hadn't got it crazy at the end of the game. And then 3-1 at home against Carrick. They have pulled it out of the hat. Yes, they don't win that game against Newry, which really would have benefited them if they could. But they're in a situation which they weren't in last week. It's in their hands. So they need to win, but they're away from home. Dungannon are happy with a draw, but they're at home, so maybe they can catch this team that's pushing on. I don't know who you'd rather be, a team that knows they have to win, or a team that can just sit back at the 70 minutes and just chill. I feel like the odds of a red card in this game are very high. Just because it'll be all action and everyone will be on their toes, and that would be a shame. And these are not two entertaining teams when they face against other teams, but when all the chips are in the air, it could be fascinating. So for yourself, Conor, you're feeling that this could be Port's time.
I think that this is, now if I can roll the clock back slightly, I remember Carrick v Ballymallard on the last day of the season that Warren Point ended up going down, and there was a mad swing. And I feel like this is the kind of game that I'm going to tell my grandchildren about. That I came down to this game and I don't know, maybe Niall Curry, something happens in the last minute, he runs on topless, live streaming on Twitter or on TikTok. He loves TikTok. I just think that the most mental thing potentially could happen. Or Dungannon could go out 3-0 at half time. You're like, nah, well there we go. They knew what they had to do. And
the corner came in, and then it was an OG from Chris Rogers.
Yeah.
That feels like it would be a disappointment. Obviously, that'll be brilliant for Dungannon.
Yeah.
Yes, and I feel for Dungannon here because they have been up and down, and they've had that big high of the two big results against Cliftonville, both in the league and in the cup, but they haven't finished just yet. And you're right, where Portadown beat Ballymena, yes, it was at home. They lose to Ballymena away when a point even would have helped them significantly there. We'll talk about the 2 goals because I think it sums up a bit of the way Dungannon have been going. The first one is they get caught trying to play the ball out. They get chased down. They lose the ball, and then Ballymena just need 2 passes, and then they can knock it into the net. And then that last one just seems like an absolute freak one, but it's exactly the type of goal that you concede from them just hoofing the ball in the air from inside their own half. That is not a moment Declan Dunn will want to look back on, to be fair to say.
No. I always judge it by people who don't or have no interest in the Irish League text me about the Irish League, which is that Kim Nelson goal. 2 different people text me, were like, did you see this? But you're right, on another day that never goes in. He just lumps it, and then poor Declan Dunn. And Declan Dunn is a good keeper. I just think there's just been so much at him this year, maybe. So I don't know. I don't even know who's going to win. It's just going to be class.
It will be an absolutely fascinating game, and whoever doesn't get out of this mire, and look, I think Newry will be happy if Portadown can get any kind of result, because that means they're safe. Hey, they're rocking and rolling. But one team who will be playing Premiership football next season, it's Loughgall. Insert current media cliche here. They're the smallest team who's in the top flight in Europe. I can't believe there's somehow not a smaller settlement in the Faroe Islands or something. But hey, a team who's always been high up there in the Championship. Dean Smith has done it for them. They're champions. I'm pretty sure it guarantees that they're going to be up. I don't know what shenanigans behind the scenes needs to happen when it comes to boring old paperwork. But congratulations to them. A long time coming, I'm sure. They've been building, and they finally get over the line.
Yeah, it's great to see. And I think, was it 2007 maybe they were last up, something like that. So great to see them back. It's refreshing because sometimes you see teams come down, come back up, and it kind of almost has a merry-go-round feel to it. So it's nice to have someone else come up again and freshen things up, I guess.
We transition into a tiny bit of news, something I said I would cover on the podcast during the week. It was an article by Keith Bailey in the Belfast Telegraph. He was talking to Jared Lawler. He was saying that he had a bit of concern about championship crowds. That was something that was a big issue for Niffle, saying that of the top 15 most attended teams' home games, because they're finally starting to get championship attendances, only one team from the championship was in there, and that was Ards, 2 of them being also women's Premiership sides. It does. It's an interesting question now because there's also a new story coming out about PSNI and then potentially not being relegated. And I do think as the Premiership expands on and it grows themselves, and look, I don't think anybody is saying that the Premiership should be some sort of closed shop of the most well supported teams. Not at all. It's totally against the ideals of the sport of football. But it will be interesting with the top division setting higher standards. Unfortunately, teams below aren't able to not equal it, but don't have the same. Ambition was a word that was used by Jared Lawler. I'm sure it would upset a lot of people who work behind the scenes in the clubs. But I think Loughgall's are a real key example of, if their ground is used next year in the Premiership, I am led to believe is up in the air. And I'm not saying you need a Premiership ground to progress up. You know, you can ground share and all that type of stuff. But could we potentially be seeing a bit of an evolution with teams there when we move to a 12-team league? I remember this was like big mad mega championship with teams that we never saw again. Killymoon Rangers were in there. Cook United, you know, teams that got floated around. You know, I think it was Glebe Rangers in there at the same time. You know, teams that were in and about. And I think not it should be a closed shop, but I do think even teams lower down, and you're probably looking at teams like Bangor and Ards and teams like that, I think they clearly want ambitions to at least be sniffing around being a top tier team. Dundela, the Welders, they're clearly looking to be up there, Institute and all that type of stuff. And I wonder, will that push for people like more Ballymacashes to move up, where if you can innovate and you can work on yourselves and create the infrastructure around yourselves, are you more likely to be involved? It's just interesting. There's no real key thing. We're not going to have a whole big 10-point plan of how to develop non-top tier football in this country. But Loughgall are an interesting example, and I think they're probably a team. Look, like I said, come from the smallest settlement is the term that's being used at the minute in Europe for a top tier team. Just because you don't come from a massive area, a massive catchment pool, doesn't mean you can't play top tier football. You're just going to have to get some boring X's and O's sorted out.
I like the Ballymacash example because they're doing class in that, both for the area, I think, but also like what they've built with the ground, with the stand and everything that's going on there. It is interesting, Pete, and I think that like it would, you know, then it leads you more to debates. If you look at the top, we did a podcast last year and like the whole topic of it was around like an All-Ireland league, and does that then lead on to another conversation in that regard where you're like saying, where you're restructuring everything? I don't know. We've talked a lot about restructuring things and like going back to the drawing board and stuff. Spring is in the air.
The blueprints of things moving forward.
Yeah.
I know. It is kind of feels like a lot of a moment of change. And it's easy for people like us to go, do this, do that. You know, can someone just go create West Belfast FC so we can have a team there because the optics are good? You know that's rich. But you know, I think Jared Lawler makes a point of that. If you don't have floodlights, for example, you know, can you be playing championship football? I think that's up to him to decide and clubs to have that open discussion. But when we are looking to move the game forward, questions like that are going to arise. And look, it's a multi-pronged approach because there has to be support, there has to be investment, there has to be funding and all those type of things. But we've seen where an ideas man, like, this is such an unfair example, but Kenny Bruce has been able to achieve on a certain level. It will be about these clubs going, yes, we want to do well on the football pitch, but if we can grow a club and we can grow a fan base, and look, we're Warm Point, the way they're able to grow themselves up, and let's not even get into the semantics of how that happened, but we have seen a Ballinamallard get there. We've seen Warm Point get there. We'll see what a new reborn Bangor is, and as well as, you know, Distillery are trying to build themselves back up again. Ballymacash, how far could they rise? I think if we are keen to see the league and football in this country move forward, perhaps boring little logistics like that could be a thing, and we could see the rise of teams. As we said at the start of this podcast, we never saw Larne being champions, or it seemed like a very far way away or a pipe dream. You never know what teams could emerge and from what area. Let's talk about the games that are coming up. And we spent a lot of time talking about this game, and I'm now going to ask these fine fellas to put their money where their mouth is, metaphorically, as in their reputation on the line. Are you going to give me a score for this Dungannon Swifts against Portadown mega match?
Yeah, I'm gonna say 3-1 Portadown.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's what the stats say. So not financial advice, but 3-1.
No.
Put it on.
3-1. It'll probably be a missed penalty in there. That's been another fixture of these games. Like I said, I don't know how that's going to go, but there will definitely be tiers one way or the other, won't there be? There'll be, and there's obviously two outlooks where that's put it down. And look, also, it's fair to say, I feel like this is weird, and I've talked about this in the pod already, how like people go, well, all Portadown need to do is to beat Dungannon, and then sure, Glenavon are going to roll over. Don't think that's on the cards. 100% not. You know, you could see a situation where Portadown win, they're brilliant, and then they can't score past Glenavon and Dungannon still stay up. And as well, for either of these teams, and I think technically Dungannon can actually catch Newry, so like that's what they'll be pushing for as well. But even whoever finished 11th in this league, they've got Warren Point. A Warren Point who aren't absolutely setting the world on fire, but have a lot of great players, and we've all seen in 2 legs, it could happen one way or the other. We didn't get a score from you now, Conor, come on.
No, I agree. 3-1.
3-1.
But
both go for 3-1?
I'll go 3-all.
He can never agree.
Wow.
I want 3-all. I think it's going to be a game off the ages. Like you said, did you say the master game?
Mega game.
Mega game.
Mega game. The mega game at the Stagmore Park.
Yeah.
I want a big drone. It's
going to be huge. I want to know how many people, like neutrals, will be there.
I genuinely, that is what's going to be really interesting, because there's a lot of teams who have games that don't have a lot on the line. Obviously, you have Larne Linfield on Friday, so you know there's a lot of fans out there. It could be fascinating, and well, that's a good segue. Are Linfield going to wreck Larne's little party down at Inver Park on Friday?
It's quite difficult to know. It depends. Will Larne stay strong and put a strong team out? Will they mix it up a bit? You know, obviously this week will be party mode for them, but I suppose it's a big night in regards to their history, so they'll want to obviously get the win. They're not going to go thinking anything else, but Linfield want to consolidate second, so I don't know. I think maybe a draw one each, maybe.
It feels a bit like The Price is Right. It's like, this is what you could have signed. Come on down, league bonus. Hey, Frauzilla, you out of contract this summer? You might be. Let's see what happens. You know?
It's true.
So, hey, it would, look, I don't really think, I think Larne fans right now would take a 5-0 loss, because if it meant they still kept the league title, you know, it won't matter. Look, Linfield need to get it done. I just don't know what the atmosphere is going to be like, but you know, you got to say a jubilant Larne, a frustrated Linfield, you probably favour them. Yeah. The odds say a draw though. Remember we're talking about odds? 0-0? Done. In the bag. In the bag. Go on with the odds. North Belfast Derby. Are we inserting new manager Bounce or assistant or whatever caretaker Bounce into this Cliftonville Crusaders game?
That's what we didn't actually mention earlier on. Was I think could this be like unbelievable timing from Paddy McLaughlin to be like, right, this isn't going well, but you need a couple of wins here, so I'll leave. It'll bounce, and you're into Europe. And we're all happy. It's
like going to be like a meme, like he's in the clouds looking down. Going,
yeah.
Well done.
I did that. Yeah. I did that. I don't know. Like, surely the crews begin to rest, you know, through fears that by throwing the ball, any player could be suspended. And I think Cliftonville could take advantage of that anytime if BJ won't be playing, but any Crews player that throws a ball, you know, and gets them sent off, suspended from the final. So
it's like Rivaldo 2002.
It is, classic moment. Different
kind of vibe. There's children that don't know what I'm talking about out there. I know, I've met them. They're all telling TikTok right now. So yeah, strange one. These games can sometimes either lead to damn squibs or mega matches.
That's the risk. Like, you know, it could be a mega match.
Yeah, like a mega match could a 3-3 could threaten to break out at any moment.
Yeah, I know, and I don't. Well, they've been sort of like Jared Docherty's been playing a lot in nets, and they conceded 3 the other day, and they can score goals. Crews aren't very good away from home. Mega match.
The still thing here is that Cliftonville are fighting for is definitely home advantage. We all talk about Bar, Dungannon, and everything else. Like, Solitude was and probably still is a big factor for them. They'll want to make sure that Europe goes through there. If they're going to have to go in this playoff, you're going to have to beat them there to take it from them. So, really big game there. Glentoran against Coleraine. Coleraine, like, I don't know. I would say here that they will be preparing themselves for the playoff, going down to Glentoran. It's never really being a fruitful ground for them. Glens feel like they've got a bit of rhythm behind them. That this probably says 3-3. Yeah,
I'd agree. Yeah. No, I think it's hard to see anything but a Glentoran win, and a comfortable one at that. Especially after Saturday, just how good they looked, and back to their early days of the season, I guess. Whereas Korean, I just can't see them getting anything. So yeah, I would say maybe another 3-0 for Glentoran.
How many Bobby Burns goals?
Oh, it's a hat trick, obviously.
Where from? 50 yards out this time.
Just all the same.
What about yourself, Conor?
No, I completely agree. I think that Glentoran team, like, Rodney just needs to keep it ticking. Like, it nearly picks itself. And we were just behind the director's box, and the amount of like talent in the director's box even as well, just with players who were not featured in the game, like, very impressive. So yeah, it could be more than 3. I don't know. Surely Korean will begin to think about the European playoffs, and like, Glens, don't change anything, just keep going.
Wrapping Shevlin up in cotton wool at that point. Carrick against Glenavon. This could have been a big fixture in that fight for Europe, but Glenavon and their amazing run recently, another great victory for them, another clean sheet away. I mean, Stuart King, after that Portadown game, was pretty much saying, some of these boys are gone. Like, he was furious after that result. So this is a chance for some of these players to maybe keep their place in the team for next year. Could be a bit of a feisty, fiery one out of nowhere. But it depends if maybe Gary Hamilton starts resting these players, this famous rotation that he's apparently going to be doing, or at least those people on the internet are saying he's going to do.
Yeah, I think, to me, this seems like a game that Carrick will win. And I say that because they've obviously gone Portadown, lost, and as you said, Stuart King's comments, just feels like that sort of game. You know, Glenavon, they've secured 7th. They're probably happy enough. Carrick tend to bounce back this season. We've seen it a few times. So I think it'll be tight enough, maybe 2-1 Carrick.
Glenavon will definitely play about 6 15-year-olds.
But their 15-year-olds are probably better. Like, they're so good.
Oh, yeah.
There'll be like 6 of these boys who are going to be playing for Glentoran in 3 years,
Yeah.
so it's careful what they wish for.
They always are awesome, and they just break records every time. There must be one year in like the local school where everyone's like, "Have you not played for Glenavon?" Like, which is class. So I do agree with yourself. Like, I do think Carrick, out of fear of Stuart King, will raise their game.
I would be scared if I played in that Carrick team for sure. And then finally, Newry versus Ballymena is being played in front of a massive screen showing the Dungannon against Portadown game, I believe. There'll be Newry fans that'll be listening to the radio shouting at the boys. That's a weird one, because ultimately, look, Newry will want to win and make sure that they don't have to rely on other results to stay in this division. Congratulations to them that they're in this position. But yes, another weird game where results elsewhere are probably the bigger factor. And Ballymena will be happy. David Jeffrey has clearly been very frustrated by this run. He's not taking this lightly, that it hasn't been going well. They'll want momentum. That Newry Showgrounds pitch is a bit tricky. I really couldn't call a game either, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I'm the same. I don't really know. It's a hard one to call. You don't really know what Ballymena are going to do, especially in the league. If it was the Cup, it's a different story.
If it was a Seaview, we all know.
Move it to Seaview. No, but I don't know. Maybe a draw. Could I be boring and say it'll be 0-0?
3-3, Conor, yeah.
Boring. I'll tell you what's going to happen. Newry are going to win because David Jeffrey, does he listen to the podcast?
I don't know.
Probably. And he this week will hear...
I don't have celebrity listeners like you guys.
We don't. He will hear his name linked with the Cliftonville job. He'll be distracted. And then I do think Newry will win, to be honest.
I'm waiting for did you hear rumours out there that David Jeffrey's linked to them? Amazing. Fellas, I'm so glad to have done this. It's such a different experience. This is what Joe Rogan's like when you're chatting to somebody in front of the podcast. This has been very, very different. I hope you guys out there listening enjoy it. This has been in the works for a while. I'm so glad it's happened. This is the point in the programme where I go, get plugging. I'm sure anybody listening to this podcast are well aware of the Waffle, but come on, get your best sell on right now.
We're very good at marketing.
We have a much less professional podcast than this, because your podcast is awesome.
No,
it is. I'm not just saying it because we're in your house, but and it has been such a welcome addition. We have a lot of fun doing it, too, and we don't take it very seriously. So if you like lightheartedness you're more than welcome to listen to our
There's
podcast.
there's lots of flavors in the ice cream shop. Where can people find this podcast?
You find it probably anywhere you listen to your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Apple Music. I'm not even sure what it is these days, but they're probably two most popular. But we're on Anchor. I think it's now called Spotify for podcasters.
I know. It's
so
changed.
confusing.
I still type in the
Yeah,
same thing.
but if you find us on Twitter, all the links will be in our bio. So click it up
Amazing.
there.
That is a brilliant Twitter account as well. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully it's the first and not the last time that we get together and eat buns and drink coffee out of your rather fine. I got myself a waffle mug.
Yes.
I'm absolutely delighted with that. And till next time.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much.
All the best.
That's it now, folks. Nothing to see here. Thank you very much for tuning in. If this was your first time with the pod, it was very nice to have you. Really appreciate it. I guess that's something we can describe as a crossover episode. We've had a few guests from other programs and podcasts, but that felt like a whole little special shebang. We had them live at my dining room table, something a wee bit different. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did like it, you can follow the podcast on Spotify, if that's the place, of course, that you listen to this podcast. If there's a way to follow on Apple Music, good for you. I don't know how it works, but you can also follow us on social media. It's Kicking Match on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. All easy beans. And of course, you can enter the world of hands-free podcasting. If you want to listen to us on your smart speaker, just say, "Hey, smart speaker, please play Kicking Match, an Irish League podcast." We're gonna keep this bad boy running for as long as there is gas in the tank, and right now I don't want to know what's left in there after the season all wraps up, but I'm still enjoying it and it's great. Thanks for listening. Till next time, I'll see you soon. Toodles.